Welcome back to Triple H 100.1 FM. You're listening to the National Radio News. I don't even know what just happened. Hey, it just disappears. That's what it does.
Didn't feel like telling the news this morning.
Yeah, no, it just decided to opt out. But look, let's go straight into Small Biz Matters. The more time, the merrier. We're joined with Alexi this morning. Alexi, how are you?
Good morning, boys. How are you? Good. I'm good.
Oh, not bad. It's just surprised to be here, you know?
You didn't think you'd make it to this Tuesday morning?
I didn't think I'd make it. Look, let's just go straight into it as we always do. If you haven't heard Small Biz Matters before, we have the shows up on facebook.com/The Breakfast Boys Triple H. And of course, you can find Alexi at Office Boyd Management. Was I close?
You never get that. No, that's just appalling.
Oh, no.
Boyd Office Management Services.com.au.
Get your words around the right way.
Callum, you would have got it wrong as well, buddy.
I would have read it off the paper.
So, look,
that's me.
Apart from Callum, you know, sort of falling backwards, because I know you would. Oh, no, that's so bad. What are we going to talk about today in Small Biz Matters?
It's another exciting admin show, boys. I'm going to try and keep you awake for the next half hour, but I get excited about this because this is my forte and how I love to help businesses, but it's all about forms. Forms.
And this is a continuation from last week?
It is, yeah. Last week we looked at processes and procedures. It's probably a good idea to listen back to last week's show via the Facebook page because the two shows really go together. One is all about, you know, the processes and how that can help you in your business, and the forms obviously go with that because you need forms in place, templates, pro formas, etc. In your business to make it work. It forms. See how I did that? The backbone of your business admin. So without too much effort today, simply by writing a list based on today's program as to which of these forms we're going to chat about would work for your business, it's a great way to start on a process manual. And we touched on what a process manual, how useful that is on the program last week. Of course, it does add value to your business. It's something that somebody who's taking over your business wants to know that it runs smoothly, that everybody who works in your business has a responsibility and a role, and they know what that role is, and should they take over from you, that it's a smooth transition. So it adds value to your business. It forms part of a business plan that may be something that your financial institution insists that you have in order for them to see your business as valuable enough to lend you money. So it's all about adding value to your business so that you've got more processes and procedures in place. It also makes life easier for you as well. So having templates in place means that you don't have to rethink things over and over again. There's been a number of times I've worked with businesses, and the number of times they sort of have a standard email they will rewrite every time, and it's just, no, put that somewhere, put it in a Word doc or make it a signature and just use it again and again.
Yeah, I think we briefly talked about that last week.
Yeah.
Speaking of last week, quickly before we get too into this, was there any homework that we should have done?
Yes. Homework was to write a list of forms that you currently use in your business. Now, that may not be something that you've got too well standardised yourself, but I wanted everyone to think about what they have in place already so that they can build on that or improve on that based on some of the suggestions we make today.
And I mean, you'd start with forms, you'd always start with the basic ones, which are really the legal ones. What's a good example of legal forms that you can think of?
Well, I'd say one thing that every business definitely should have would be a hazard incident form, which is part of your work health and safety. So you need to make sure that those are there and they're ready and they're accessible should an incident occur. It's not a very complicated form. It's usually like who did what happened, why did it happen, what were the resulting injuries, if any. And it forms a part of your work health and safety and also your work cover insurance. So I would say that would be just a really obvious one that everyone should have. And I'm not just talking about tradies. Anyone who's in an office environment. I know, for example, an office I used to work in, one lady slipped on a ramp going down to the bathroom. She bumped her elbow. She didn't think anything of it. And I said, no, we're filling out a form and we're just going to put it down somewhere and all sign it. Now, she had actually fractured her elbow and she didn't realise it. So, there were some ongoing medical costs that had we not filled out that form, and had she not even reported it to anyone, so encourage your staff to report all incidents, because that's why you've got the work health and safety, why you've got work cover in place. But had she not reported it and had we not filled out the form, then it would have been very difficult for her to then claim those medical costs.
Yeah, right.
So it is a bit about looking after your staff. So that's just one example of one that you really should have in place. There's obviously the tax deck forms. that you need to have every time someone starts afresh with you, the ATO, you need to fill out a tax deck form.
Yep. And if you don't fill it out, you might find yourself minus $500 or so.
Yeah.
AKA me.
Which you won't get back for another 12 months out of the ATO. Look, I'm surprised at the number of businesses that I help out that don't have tax deck forms just ready to go or haven't. They kind of say, oh, that's right, I had 2 guys start last month and they haven't done their tax deck forms. That's actually really quite a legal requirement and it must be done. So that's just a couple of standard legal ones. I'm not going to try and tout myself as a legal expert because obviously I'm not. And so we're just going to touch on some of the admin forms which are commonly used.
Yeah, filling out those forms is sort of part of the induction process, really.
Yeah, it is quite important that you have those standardised. It makes, first of all, the induction process a level playing field for everyone. Make sure you've got all the information set out in stone. We're going to go over some of the more commonly used forms when you have an induction process. I'd say that's the most intensive time that you have a form lying about. And then we're also going to touch on a couple of our some business associates that I have, and they've made some suggestions about forms that they use which are more specific to their industry.
Right. Before we come to forms that are wanting to be discussed, I always talk about this, and it's staff feedback with forms. Now, some may not be optional, but are there any forms that you think would be appropriate when the staff mention them? Let's say, they might want something, they might, really need something. What's the most commonly sort of asked for form that could be, added to the business?
Yeah, I think staff feedback forms are a great idea, actually. One way you could do it, if you've got a large enough team, you could make it anonymous. You could ask them to, I don't know, sometimes staff may feel more comfortable making suggestions anonymously, so get them to perhaps type it out. But yeah, I mean, just a standard, that's a really good idea, actually. Just a standard form that they can make suggestions about the way things operate or what they might like. You could ask your staff, what do you want to do for a staff night out kind of thing, and get them to suggest it instead of you saying bowling.
Yes.
And half the staff don't enjoy it. So that's a great idea as from an employee perspective. Thank you, Chad.
Oh. And just quickly before we go to a song, can you tell me what sort of form, like the whole using a hard copy of a form versus the digital email form, is there certain situations where one's going to really benefit more than the other?
Not especially. Most of the forms you get in a PDF format that come from bigger companies now, you could usually fill them out online, print them out and sign them. You usually have to sign and date most forms. It doesn't become a legal document until you do so, and then they usually ask you to fax it or post it off. I wouldn't suggest in a small business going to the trouble of creating an Adobe form to complete. It can easily just be done in Word, depending on your formatting skills, or there's actually nothing wrong with just writing it out and photocopying it. Like, it doesn't. If you're not particularly au fait with programs like Word or Illustrator, if you want to really go down that graphic designer far, you don't need to go that far. There's absolutely nothing wrong with just writing it out and asking staff to
do it that simply.
Yeah.
Whip it up in 10 minutes.
Yeah,
or so,
it's just about having something that's standardised that you can use again and again, and you're not finding yourself kind of going 10 weeks after someone starts. Oh, what are your bank account details again, so I can pay you?
Yeah,
and of
problem.
Course, before we do go to a song, as we've always said, brand everything.
Brand everything, even if it's an internal document, get your logo on there and get some contact details on there. Again, it just makes your whole business look more professional. Gives your staff that sort of feeling of ease because they know that you're efficient, and again adds value to your business.
Before we had the Arctic Monkeys, we were talking about forms.
Yes, that's the topic for the day, I guess.
Forms and admin. We're trying to make it sound exciting. It is tricky.
Forms and admin.
I was one of those. I used to love filling out forms as a kid, and I think that's why I've moved into admin. I actually really enjoy it. I get really annoyed when forms don't give me enough space. Like, if I can give one piece of advice to anybody writing a form out there, it's make sure the email address section is a full line, because some people have stupidly long email addresses, such as myself.
No, the worst is when it gives you like one line for your whole postal address, and it's like, really?
Yes.
Please.
So if you're going to do a form, print it out first and fill it out yourself, and just go, actually, that was just a bit annoying, so I'll just give myself some more space. So, tips and tricks.
I mean, online forms are probably easier than filling out a form back in the good old days.
Yeah, I do appreciate it when a company sends something. I had to fill out a report for someone, instant report, a couple of weeks ago, there was an accident on site, just a dingle, nothing big, but the insurance company actually sent it as a PDF, which was so nice because I could type it all out and, not have to sit there with whiteout and going out over and top and over and back. And yeah, it was much easier. I do appreciate that. Well done, insurance company number E. Yeah.
But with forms, look, you will have a digital copy and everything, but how important is it to store away your soft copies, your tangible sort of forms?
Yeah, we do harp on this a little bit, but it's it's really important. I think there's a lot of businesses out there who just presume that as long as their computers are safe and they're not going to be stolen, everything's okay. But I had my Mac mail crash on me last week, and I panicked.
It always does. There's something. That program is just developing into...
It is. It's a big monster for Mac, isn't it? But I figured out what it was. Some silly supplier had sent me an invoice that was a format that Mail didn't like. Simple as that, but it took me like an hour and a half to figure it out. But back up. It's really important. And don't just back up your computer and then, think that that's fine. Maybe once every 3 months, just check you can actually get that in, retrieve off the backup disk.
Yes.
It's all fine and well to have a backup disk that's broken. But yeah, just make sure that these soft copies are either scanned in or they're written in, PDF format, whatever, and they're backed up somewhere. You've got copies of them. We talk about that all the time in terms of soft copies. But commonly used forms. So things that I would suggest most businesses should have. We touched on the hazard incident report form, very important. Hopefully never needing to be used.
Yes.
Yeah, unless you have an elbow incident, as discussed earlier. But when employees start work, this is really important that you nail this. First of all, for your taxation obligations, you need to make sure that you've got a tax deck form. Now, there are some computer software, accounting software packages like MyOb and Xero that now actually enable you to put that information straight in and they will upload it to the ATO. I would still suggest having a hard copy filed away in a personal file. It's also really important that for every new staff member, you actually have a separate personal file for them. And that could include their resume and all these documents that they're going to fill out for you. But remember, this is highly confidential. So the information, a resume is confidential because it has contact details on it. And all the information, emergency contact detail, medical information that you gain from your staff, this is confidential information. It needs to be under lock and key. So it needs to be filed away somewhere, and somewhere that is not accessible to the public or can't be stolen.
Well, especially if they have banking details on them as well.
Yes.
I would double lock, would be nice.
Imagine the liability trap you fall into if somebody gets their hand on all that. So very important that you keep it all safe. So when employees actually start work, you want to make sure an emergency contact details form. Now, I'm surprised at how many businesses don't have this, because you need to know next of kin if there is a severe accident or someone ends up in hospital and you need to make the contact. Make sure you have 2 contacts listed, even if this person is an au pair from overseas and they're giving you their German mother's phone number, get two numbers. It's really important. And you don't need to keep any medical records, obviously, but it's something that you should have on key. And also, you have to refresh this every, say, 6 months or so, get them to fill out the form again and destroy the old copies. And what I used to do as an office manager in the last company I worked in, I would scan in all these copies and send it as a specific file, just a single PDF file to my boss, so that if there was an accident, he would have all of those on hand straight away. So all of the forms filled in and PDF'd. I know it sounds ridiculously over the top and organised. That sort of is what I do.
Yeah, but
if there's
a situation like that, I mean...
Yeah,
if there's
exactly.
an accident, it's not going to seem dumb then,
No, you want to have that information ready and available.
Definitely.
Obviously, not contact details, but employee information. So where they live, email addresses, contact numbers, banking details, or get all of that right from the beginning so that you can pay them. There's also something you legally have to do as well. You have to get every new staff member to fill out a superannuation standard choice form. Now, this form doesn't actually get sent anywhere, but you have to prove that you have asked the employee which super fund they choose. And if they say, I don't care, then you nominate the fund that you use for the rest of your employees or the ones that don't care. So you have to give them the choice. You have to keep this form, you have to get them to fill it out and just keep it in their personnel file. So it just proves that you've asked them the question and that they've told you either, no, I want this super fund, and remember that they can choose any super fund they like as long as it's a legal super fund entity.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about sort of just standardised forms. Talk to me about templates. How custom should they be, or should we literally be using a standard template for every single sort of employee or form that we use?
Yeah, look, I think with something that you use again and again with new employees, you should just standardise it from the beginning.
Yeah.
You got to tweak it every now and then, but it's another thing that, you know, when someone is starting, there should be an induction procedure, there should be a chat about work health and safety, there should be all of these forms filled out, you should be getting their banking details, you should be setting them up in your account system for payroll. You need to explain to them, as you know, what their expectations are as a staff member, their KPIs. There's a lot of things to go through that you need to tick off your fabulous checklist that you've created after last week's show. You don't want to be thinking about this sort of at night while you're saying, oh, I forgot to get their super choice form, oh, I forgot to do this. Get it all standardised, get it all in a pack, if you will, and it doesn't have to be a hard copy, it could be a soft copy.
Just hand it off to them.
Yeah, I actually had, in the last job I had a standardised email where I would ask them all these questions, and as soon as they were offered the position and they signed off on their what do you call it, staff form. Employment agreement. And as soon as they filled in the employment agreement and agreed to come on board and had a start date, I'd shoot them that email. So keeping your processes just really step by step and stock standard does make it easier for you. And if you're the one, as a small business owner, doing all of this and you don't have an admin person, then just make it easier for yourself and standardise it. Do it the same time each time, same way each time. There's a few other little forms that just might help you in your day-to-day running of the business. Fax letterheads. I know it sounds a bit, what's a fax machine? So some people out there still do use faxes. Don't just send a fax with no explanation or anything. You don't know how many people are standing over a fax machine at the other end. There could be 20 people at the other end. Always have a fax letterhead, always have your logo on it. Explain what it's for. It doesn't need to be typed. It can just be a quick little date, time, how many pages were sent. Then they know how many pages at the other end to expect. So there's 3 pages plus this covering letter. So when only 2 pages pop out the other end, you get a call straight away. Instead of 3 weeks' time when they go, we only got the first 2 pages. And then you can't even remember what the fax was about. So that helps.
How did that go?
I can't remember.
Got the first 2 pages.
Some businesses out there have explained they have confidentiality agreements. Now, this is something I do for my clients. It's just something that gives them peace of mind because I am rummaging through all of their business details and I've got access to a lot of confidential information. It gives them peace of mind, lets them know that I'm not going to go away and sell their information or use it or anything like that. So that's something that some examples of businesses have given me examples of. That didn't make sense either. Invoice templates. It's a really obvious one, but not something I see a lot of clients using. Now remember, all invoices must have the word tax invoice written on them, the seller's identity and their ABN number, the date, a description of the goods and services, and a statement such as total price includes GST or a GST amount written on there somewhere so that the person can understand what components have GST in them or what the total GST is of the invoice. It's very important. And if the amount is over $1,000, you also have to have the buyer's identity and their ABN on there as well. The number of businesses that get these invoices incorrect. And as consumers as well, if you're a small business and you're claiming back tax deductions on invoices and you go to a shop and they just hand you an invoice that doesn't have the date on it, doesn't have, all they got to do is stamp it with an ABN. That's not a legal tax invoice. So make sure that you press for the right thing so that you're getting what you need. And also check with the ATO if you're not 100% sure or check with your accountant, of course, if you're not sure if your tax invoices are compliant. It's really important.
Is there a way to sort of make that smoother, faster? Can it be done by a computer?
Tax invoicing is something that a lot of businesses say is really the bane of their existence, although that's how they get paid. So.
Yep, okay.
Because you can't really standardise it as much, can you? I mean, like you can have the basic sort of
I standardise
template,
mine. I standardise mine in Word. I mean, I'm a bit finicky with the look and feel of my business, so I don't like to send out invoices straight out of an account software such as MyOb or Xero. I prefer to use my own template, which is a bit of double work, I know, but I've just got a thing about the way they look. So
But
yeah.
but it can be done by software.
Oh yeah. That look, Xero is a
great.
fabulous accounts package, and hopefully our guest next week will talk to people a little bit more about what accounts software there is out there. But that does make it a lot easier, yes. But
Okay,
those
good.
things come at a cost. They do.
Mm.
So standardising your own version in Word or getting an admin consultant to help you
hint.
with standardising it.
Such as.
Such as indeed. I'll get to that in a minute. And then also just to let you know that one of my small business partners, Christina Duke, who is the decluttering diva, she says she's currently working on a client profile form. Now this would help her better understand the needs of her clients and I guess help her standardise the process of exactly knowing how she utilises her expertise to meet their needs. So perhaps she might be taking details like what they want to see happen in 6 months or 12 months in their office, or what are their expectations from her, and just writing all these things down when she meets with them. Again, standardising it for every client. That way she's ticking all the boxes. So she's making sure she's got a checklist when she meets with her clients, which is a great form to have. Also spoke to Mark Wilson from Danette Architecture. Also suggested that they have their own invoice templates, which is very useful. He talks about, in terms of architecture world, schedules, quotes, drawings, typical letters, which are ready to go as templates. And templates and all these things being in place, it's really the hallmark of a successful business, in my opinion.
If you haven't heard Small Biz Matters before, I feel so sorry for you because you've missed out on about 4 weeks of four.
But that's okay. It's okay if they've missed it, because if they're inspired by today's program all about forms, then they can go and download the MP3 files,
Yep.
either from the Breakfast Boys Facebook page,
yes.
or they can go to my website, boydofficemanagement.com.au, and they're all available there. I also am putting up the, starting to, give me about a day, to put up the transcripts from so if you're better at just scan reading rather than actually listening to a half-hour show, then you can pick up the tips and tricks out of those pages as well. You might find that a bit more useful.
And we might put those on the Facebook page as well, just to help out and
yes.
sort of move things forward.
Make the download easy. Yes, so today talking about forms, this is a bit of your expertise. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, look, I do enjoy stepping into a business and just look, often it's when I go and assist someone, I do what's called an admin audit, step into a business and provide them with the Boyd report, as I call it. And it's really just looking at 10 strategic areas of admin, which every business, no matter big or small, really should be covering. And usually after chatting to a business for about an hour or so, I can pick out about 2 or 3 strategies that they really need to implement to get things working more efficiently. And the number of times, it really is very simple things. It's not rocket science, but it's often because you're working in your business all the time. You don't have time to think about, all these admin things, but you don't realise that having these things in place and having template and standardised forms means that everything runs more efficiently. It simply makes no sense to be rewriting an email over and over again for a client when it's just a standard email, or rewriting an invoice every single time. I've dealt with builders who have literally written out quotes on a pad of paper every single time they do a quote. So, and that's just as simple as, doing a blank quoting template, which has your logo, your contact details, very important, and everything on there, and then you can just put total and GST and all that stuff. So tick at least some boxes, make your life a little bit easier from the word go.
Now, I'm no expert here, but I have brought this up throughout our Small Biz Matters show a few times. I used to work as a cleaner. And
I'm sensing this was your favourite job. So.
But speaking of all these, forms, I want to point out, please update your forms when the business changes. I know that might seem something that's very obvious, but when, I wasn't technically, I was giving cash in hand, but there was a few things I had to fill out. And when it's not even the correct business name on the top of the form.
Yeah, that doesn't make you look very efficient, does it? And often people's ABNs will change as well, because they've turned in from, they become a sole trader and they've turned into a PTY Ltd. That means your ABN changes and they haven't updated all that collateral. So, getting a professional to have a quick scan over all of your documents to make sure that they have all the elements there. is quite important, I feel, and it doesn't make you look like a turkey in front of your employees.
I don't know why I had the job still.
Yeah, but a good example nonetheless. So today we've just been harping on about systemising things, trying to save you time, getting something done right the first time so you don't have to do it over and over again, and making sure that everything you do is standardised but also backed up, saved as soft copies, and ensuring that any documents that are of a confidential nature, such as employee information, actually, you make sure that it's filed away correctly and it's filed away securely as well. And remember that all tax documents need to be kept for 5 years. So yeah, that's basically today's show. We've talked about everything that is forms, and it is available on both the Facebook page for the Breakfast Boys and my website. Yes.
And you have a Facebook page as well, is that
I
correct?
do, yeah. You can look up Boyd Office Management Services on Facebook as well. And there's also, I tend to put up there some information, tips and tricks on various sides of admin for businesses and useful websites. I know it sounds really boring, but the ATO does have a really good website. And also there's a great website called business.gov.au if you're not already familiar with it. There's some, if you're thinking about starting a business, or you started one, or you're looking to expand, there's various tips on there and actual legalities that you need to make sure that you cover as well, and that's quite a useful website.
Of course. And can you give us a forward tease for next week,
Yes,
Alexi?
next week, super excited. I want everyone to start thinking about the end of financial year. It is coming upon us very quickly.
Happy for some, disappointing for others. The people who are going shopping are going, oh,
no, the sales. It's coming up very, very quickly. All businesses should think about meeting with their accountants in the coming weeks and months. And to help you get the most out of that meeting, we're going to be having our first guest on the show, local, successful and extremely well-known accountant Julie Atwood, to help you get prepared for the end of financial year.
Fantastic. I've heard of her before.
Oh, she's very knowledgeable, and also incredibly helpful. So we're super excited to have her on the show. And just to give everyone some ideas on what discussion should you even be having with your accountant. If you're the sort of person that hands over a shoebox full of receipts, you're paying your accountant to sort that out. What you should be doing is providing your accountant with, completely closed off books ready to go, and then they can provide more of a financial advice, where to go in 5 years' time, what's your progress been. That's the best way to get the most out of your accountant.
So they actually know a bit more about your business besides just how much money you've got.
Yeah, exactly. A good accountant should be able to give you some forward thinking, should show you, be able to explain to you and talk to you about the progress of your business. Talk to you about how much, if you're suffering from cash flow problems, and maybe some strategies on how to improve that. So they are a wealth of knowledge. A lot of people think of them just as number crunchers. But if someone's been with you for a number of years and they've got your history and they've spoken to you on a number of occasions, then they will be providing you with a better service. So find a good accountant and stick to them, because they're hard to find.
We're going to have two experts in the studio, and I'm going to be very, very intimidated, and we're going to sit here and look in awe as Alexi and Julie sort of, inspire us to be better businessmen. I hope you have enjoyed Small Biz Matters, and of course we will be back with you next week with Alexi. Thank you for coming in as always, Alexi. You look fantastic today, of course.
Thanks for having me.